Now, on the long journey to try and build the best roster possible for the upcoming season, the spring transfer portal window is basically the last gas station until you get there. It opens today, and while there already been rumored to be some big names that are going to hop in, don't expect this segment of portaling to be nearly as wild as its winter predecessor. You know, the one right after the season that ends on January 2nd. This one's more of the Czech Cola version of the transfer portal. Still really good. I love a Czech Cola and a Faygo, if we're going to be honest, but it's not the top name brand. Now, like I said, that isn't to say it isn't a better deal, but you catch my drift. Because if you're entering the portal right now, it most likely means that something not so great happened during spring practice. Maybe you didn't win that starting job. Maybe that new coach and you don't exactly tango. There's also the possibility of maybe a little bit of off-the-field trouble. Need a fresh start for Breeds Brothers. Now, that isn't to say that teams can't be bolstered by a few last-second pickups along the route. After all, you don't want to build the ship out of the transfer portal. You only want to plug up a few holes before you set sea. And by getting into the program before the summer, there's still time for you to both assimilate and accelerate. So let's let the 15 days of the spring portaling begin. And who knows, for you and your team, the last piece to the puzzle may be in this window. I'm going to bring in my the former Michigan quarterback and my current co-host, David Cohn. Good-looking, tall glass of water he is. And then my other co-host,
accelerate,
the holder of the chat, assimilate, accelerate, investigate.
Put your whole fist in your mouth. Wait,
eating shrimp.
Wait, what? I got
something from Publix yesterday. It was.
Boy, we're off to the races today.
I forgot what it's called, but did not agree with me this morning.
Really? Well, good. I'm glad you just told everybody that's listening. I could not have possibly gotten to this next. Don't put your hands on my feet this morning.
Does your tummy hurt?
Well, tell me.
You got a little tum-tum problem. But, David, look, we can go. There's some teams that need some help. I think Alabama's going to be interesting to watch after what we saw during the spring. There's some guys that can help you supplement the roster. If you're waiting to this point to find your golden goose or get the guy in there that's going to turn around all your fortunes, you're playing a very, very dangerous game. Because, look, just like everything in life, timing is everything, and we're kind of at the end of the ship here.
Yeah, and look, guys, we don't make the transfer portal rules, obviously. They could be better, but we do have to talk about them. So here's the way I see it. Some news, too, before we get to that is Tennessee linebacker Elijah Herring has entered the transfer portal. That's significant because led the team in tackles last year at 79. So we're going to see a lot of names hop in. That's why I'm excited for Brandon Marcello to join us today. But just some teams that are going to be targeting specific positions. You mentioned Alabama, so let's just go there first. Defensive back. I mean, right off the bat, you knew you're losing Terrion Arnold, Kool-Aid McKinstry, going to go to the NFL. We talked, all offseason so far about Caleb Downs going to the Buckeyes, but then also Des Ricks, Trey Amos. I mean, they've lost so much in the secondary. Now, they got a Michigan transfer, Keon Sabb, to help out a little at the safety position, but they're going to be looking to add some cornerbacks. I wouldn't be surprised if they go get the pick of the litter. And some of these teams, like the Georgias of the world, they can go get the picks of the litter. So I'm kind of taking them out of the equation. Texas, Oregon, and LSU, to me, looking for defensive tackles. I mean, if Texas were returning Tavondre Sweat and Byron Murphy, they'd probably be the number one ranked team right now. Oregon's going to need some help at the defensive tackle position. They're going into the Big Ten. LSU, kind of the same situation. I'm interested to see what Ole Miss does at running back. They lost Quinshon Junkins. That's one. It's like they have all the pieces. Lane's such a run-heavy guy. What's he going to do at the running back position? And then offensive line, to me, Michigan losing, I mean, from Joe Moore award-winning offensive lines that they've had the past couple seasons, they lost almost everyone on that line. So Michigan and Missouri, both to me, are going to be looking for offensive line additions.
Yeah, and you bring up defensive tackle. I think that's going to be the most sought-after position in this window.
You think so?
I think that one's going to be. I mean, you look at Texas A&M. You look at a team like Auburn. They needed some more help on the interior. As far as looking around the rest of the country, Washington with Jed Fish is interesting with me with all they lost. I know he's added some pieces, some from Arizona, some from other places. They're going to continue to need to stack up that roster with what they've left. You know, when you look at a team like Alabama or some of these top dogs, it's obviously they're going to be able to go out and get who they want. The rich are always going to get richer in this scenario. But I feel like they're going to lose some people too, right?
Yeah.
Some of these top-level places, it's, not just how much can you intake, but how much can you keep from leaving if a guy wants to start and could go start at a place that's still big. It may not be Alabama, but you need that depth piece. How do you kind of weigh those two as well? But no, I do think defensive tackle is going to be the one with the most emphasis. Quarterback, at this point, you're either locked in, or I don't see a bunch of quarterbacks going into the market right now that can really help elevate you to maybe a season-changing type situation, unless it's somebody that's at a lower level, that's a higher level player that wants to go play at a bigger level.
Alabama quarterback Ty Simpson did announce that he's going to stay at Alabama.
Yes.
So that was a big one. He's not going to transfer. And then Georgia also had their running back, Andrew Paul, is going to enter the portal. He played in 7 games last year for Georgia.
Yeah, you're obviously going to see the top teams building depth. But the one thing I'm interested, Elijah Herring, leaving Tennessee, was Tennessee's leading tackler last year. Another one that's kind of big to me is Lambert Smith out of Penn State.
Yeah, the wide receiver.
Their leading receiver last year.
He's already entered?
And he's already entered. We talked about the quarterback problems. How much do they believe in their guy? We saw the backup come in last year for Penn State and do some good things.
Yeah.
And do some good things. That's a big piece if you're losing from Penn State. And I don't think that we need to take the Elijah Herring leaving Tennessee lightly either.
No.
Yeah, that's more interesting to me, because obviously you have a spot that you feel good about. Tennessee is looking to build on what they've done the past couple years. I know last year wasn't as exciting as the Hendon Hooker year, but you look at Nico and the depth that this team at Tennessee has built, and that's what I think's been the difference. So losing a guy like that, a veteran like that, at this point, kind of makes you wonder what's going on.
Yeah, and the Penn State one. Penn State, the needs that I put down for them was wide receiver.
Yeah.
A couple wide outs.
Well, what was their bugaboo last year? Why couldn't they get over
explosive
the hump
offense,
last
right? And so the leading receiver you do have on the team has now entered the portal. That's just a tough loss.
Well, and sometimes you sit here and, to use the Division III quote, you want to trim the fat, but it needs to be the right fat. You can't just trim it all the way down to where there's no meat left on the bone. You don't want to cut into the fat and the meat as far as, looking to try and get that room in the best shape as possible. In Penn State last year, the chemistry wasn't there from a passing standpoint. I know the numbers from a 30,000-foot view look good as far as touchdown to interception ratio for Drew Aller, but the way they had no balance last year offensively. It's borderline Iowa level of balance. We're talking about the ability to push the ball down the field and the ability to be a threat through the air. So that's going to be an interesting one to watch. We want to know, and we got Brandon Marcello coming on, whatever team you root for, what are you looking for in the transfer portal? Are you happy with where your team's at? But our good buddy, Brandon Marcello, is now with us. Brandon, hello, my friend.
What's going on, guys?
What's up, man? Thanks for hopping on. Look, I want to get right in this thing. We talked about the transfer portal window earlier. This is kind of I call it the Czech Cola version of the transfer portal. There's going to be some nice pieces. I love a good Czech Cola, Brandon. You're from the South like me. I'm sure you've walked into a place and got you a couple Czech Colas before. But when you're looking at some teams right now, and we mentioned some at the top, but is there a couple teams that you think are really going to have to take advantage and maybe plug some of the holes to the ship in this spring transfer portal window?
Yeah, I look at Alabama in the secondary. Goodness gracious, they lost, I think, more than 7, 8 guys from the defensive secondary after Nick Saban retired. They need to fill some holes there. Recently, you saw the news at Penn State with Lambert Smith, the receiver, leading receiver, going to the transfer portal. They were already kind of thin there and needed some explosiveness. And they really, as we've known under James Franklin, they have really struggled to stretch the field for whatever reason, whether it's because of scheme or just because of talent here in the recent years. Well, now they got to hit in the portal and see if they can find someone, maybe 2 people, to kind of fill some holes there. But when you're talking about contenders out there, like an Alabama or even a Penn State, they've got some obvious glaring holes that they've got to fill. And I'm not certain that there's the type of talent out there to come in there and not only make an immediate impact, but also be a star or even superstar. And when you look at teams in the SEC, like in Alabama, what also hinders them in the portal right now is that they can't go get transfers from within their own conference within the SEC because of an SEC rule that does not allow players to transfer within the conference after February 1st and be immediately eligible. So in a lot of ways, Alabama's got one hand tied behind their back, but you can bet that they're going to go spending money and looking elsewhere across the country to try to find some guys in the secondary because they are really hurting right there.
Well, it's number one, I do like that rule, the interconference rule after February 1st, unless the head coach were to leave, which really doesn't happen after spring. But I feel like if the head coach leaves, then you should be able to. But look, it's one thing, it's really disappointing when you have to go outsource your beef when you live on a cattle farm that's so good right there. And that's what Alabama would have to do kind of in the secondary. I want to stay on that Penn State note, though, for a second, Brandon, because, again, you're a guy that's tapped in around the country. When you look at pressure, and we talked about there may not be a team that benefited more from getting rid of divisions than Penn State and in the Big Ten. But when you look at some of the pressure that's on James Franklin now, after last year, once again, not being able to get over the Michigan or the Ohio State hump, and now Michigan has won a national championship, do you feel like there's a lot of heat on James Franklin and them to go ahead and show, hey, maybe we can make that move now that we're out of this division? Because, I mean, when push came to come to shove last year, they were basically just a kind of a better Iowa.
Yeah, you're exactly right. It's interesting. You got two teams within the Big Ten where I would say Iowa does not get a very good handle or shake from all this, getting rid of divisions, whereas Penn State actually benefits them.
Yeah.
And here's the other thing. With the playoff expanding, I think that actually helps James Franklin because there's a couple of his teams previously with 2 losses that would have made the college football playoff.
Agreed.
And this expanded field's going to adjust the expectations of fan bases across the country where I think to some fan bases, winning a conference title is not going to be as important as just getting a playoff and win a game or win 2.
Yeah.
Get us a home playoff game. I think that might actually help James Franklin, who notoriously, as we know, just has not really been able to be in contention for the Big Ten title here in several years. But because of their schedule and because of all the games they've won, they would have eked into the playoff a couple of times without really ever being in the Big Ten title hunt. So I wonder when we talk about having a little bit of a heat check for his hot seat, I think it's warmed up a little bit, but goodness gracious, if he wins 10 games, heck, we might even see a 9-3 Penn State someday get into the playoff. And I think that would almost kind of revitalize the fan base and what their outlook is with James Franklin, because right now it's just get us in the playoff and see if we can make some noise, and who knows what happens.
Yeah. 2 years ago, he was the hottest coach in the Big Ten, the favorite for the USC job. And since then, he's won, 10 games each season? It's wild. Brandon, in 15 days, when the portal window closes and we bring you back on here, which teams are most likely to have won in the transfer portal and lost in the transfer portal?
I like that.
Well, just look up and down the list of what's the mid-tier teams and what are the elite teams every year. The mid-tier teams are going to get really just robbed and they're going to lose a lot of guys, and the elite teams are going to get the good ones. I look right now, I don't think, for example, we talk about mid-tier teams. Ole Miss has always been a mid-tier team, but Lane Kiffin's changed things there. Their NIL collective has really changed things there. They got a lot of money, and they have been working the portal substantially well. I don't think they're done yet. And you guys saw what they did back in the fall window where they were just loading up on guys to complement an already talented roster. They're all in on trying to win a national championship this year at Ole Miss, believe it or not. And the talent they got there and they're stockpiling, they're still not done. They've still got a few guys they're going to add that are going to make some waves here, I'm hearing, here in this spring portal. So we talk about the elite getting some great players, but there's a team in there that's always been considered mid-tier that is really going to make a big splash and has been making a splash. And that team to me is still Ole Miss. It's going to be fascinating to watch the Rebels here these next couple of weeks.
Damian Martinez, the running back from Oregon State. Quinn Sean left to go to Ohio State. We'll see where he ends up. Ole Miss, I think,
that's a position
is
they
in
need
the
to fill.
fold there too. Is in the fold there.
All right, Brandon, let's get some questions from this chat. We're going to start off with our resident Arkansas fan with the Heartbroken Hog. Hashtag Ask Brandon. How excited are you to see Taylon Green in Petrino's offense?
Well, been hearing great things about him. And the thing is, Bobby Petrino got hired at Arkansas and immediately went after Taylon Green. He's like, I want that guy. And Sam Pittman said, go get a quarterback. I'm not stepping in. You get the guy you want. And he said, that's the guy I want. A lot of comparisons being made behind closed doors to Lamar Jackson. I'm not saying he's as talented as him, but that's kind of his skill set that really Petrino's really latched onto with him. His leadership skills are fantastic. won a Mountain West Conference championship last year under an interim head coach at Boise State. And then this past Saturday in their spring scrimmage did very, very, very well. And that maneuverability of him really brings a different dynamics to Petrino's offense. But what really helps Taylen Green in Arkansas is that they upgraded along the offensive line in the transfer portal. They went from bad last year to pretty good this past spring. And Petrino, behind closed doors, I'm told, is very, very happy about where they're at offensively, but especially along that offensive line, which is surprising to me. It's going to be interesting to watch the Razorbacks this upcoming fall, especially on offense.
Well, Green's an elite runner of the football. This guy is his thing at Boise State. He couldn't hit open receivers. People were having to lean. If he could just, and Petrino, I'm telling you, everybody keeps talking about, and I get it, Jalen Milroe taking that next step, becoming even more of a pocket guy, which I don't think they need to give him too much. If Taylen Green figures out a way to throw from the pocket and just be okay, Arkansas is a problem on offense. I watched a student at Boise State be a one-trick. We talk about one-trick ponies and it being a hell of a trick. If he adds another move to it, it's going to be a problem.
All right, let's go to JRMO979. He says, Brandon, what's your thoughts on Michigan being able to keep their defense intact after the portal?
Well, it'll be interesting to watch. Listen, I think as much as criticism Michigan's been getting here in the offseason, they still got a lot of talent offensively and defensively. And I don't see them losing really all that many guys in the portal this upcoming session. But I will say this, a lot of the bigger programs are facing this starting today in the portal. A lot of backups, a lot of second-team guys, some role players. They've been getting offers and everything here the last couple of weeks. And I've been talking to coaches across the country saying, I don't know what to expect when the portal opens. I might have a guy come in here on the day of that I wasn't expecting saying I'm entering the portal. I can't tell you how many coaches across the country just yesterday I was texting with saying, I don't have anybody entering the portal right now, but I'm scared that a lot more are going to come into my office tomorrow because I keep hearing rumblings even within my own team, but no one's talking to me. Yeah. These coaches are out there sitting on a limb and the storm's rolling in, and they're just trying to see if they can hang on and survive before that limb breaks off the tree.
Yeah, well, it used to be you just recruited to add players to your roster. Now you're having to recruit the players that are already on your roster to stay on your roster.
It's a mess, man.
And it's how you build culture. I don't know. But, Brandon, whatever portal it is, we're glad whenever you're able to come through it and join us, my friend. It's always great to have you. Thanks for getting up with us this morning. I know it's a crazy time for you. Please tell all our audience where they can find your great work. One of my favorite follows for sure.
Just go to 247sports.com. And like I said, the portal's already churning, and there's going to be some crazy things happening these next couple of days, some names we weren't expecting.
Definitely. Well, you need to be following Brandon Marcello. Hey, what's up, YouTube? Do us a favor. If you haven't subscribed already, what are you doing? You're already here. Just be a friend, right? We're almost to 100 trillion. We need your help to get there.